G'day photographers, it's Ben. I want to talk to you today about a bit of old technology. It's a bit retro. Your grandfather may have heard of it, and it's called film. First up, I'm not an expert on film. I grew up in a totally digital newsroom as a photographer. Even by the time I got to newspapers, all the old film had been scanned into digital copies. So I've had very little professional exposure to film, pardon the pun. It's always been for me about fun and experimentation and sort of self-directed learning and mucking it up, and really that's kind of the vibe and the relaxed feel I want you guys to get out of this assessment. I don't want it to be stressful. I want you guys just to have fun and discover a really cool way to make some one-off pictures that, you know, if you package it correctly, your clients, they'll enjoy them. All right, so the first time I went to shoot film, I got out this camera, which my dad gave me to sit on the shelf, and this thing he trekked all over Europe in the 70s. So, you know, picture this, but with flares, big collars, long hair, and, you know, like mutton chops the size of, you know, the map of New Zealand, like, and this around my neck. So now that's my dad. All right, this thing is a Canon rangefinder. Okay, it's got a fixed lens on it. This thing was sort of intended as like a really high-end kind of point-and-shoot family camera. How it works is there's shutter, you select your shutter there and your aperture there, and then you wind on your film and you just hack that button there, and that's your shutter button. The trick to it though is focusing the camera. Tracy's at the window. Hi Tracy! It's got a ghost, if you can believe that, like an orangey kind of translucent ghost of every part of the image you actually see through the viewfinder. So if you imagine you're looking at your scene through the viewfinder, just like you would with your DSLR, but there's an orangey ghost floating on it. If you float that ghost, that part of the ghost, over the part you want of your frame to be in focus, once the ghost and the image line up, you're ready to shoot and everything's in focus. That's sort of like a really clunky explanation of how a rangefinder works. Learning on a rangefinder was really tough, but it was cool. Eventually what I did to work around it was I started to whack the camera into sort of a reasonably medium sort of shutter speed, like 1/250th of a second or something, and then whacked the aperture ring into the automatic mode, which effectively gave me shutter priority, which was about as automatic as this camera got. So by picking a medium shutter speed, that's sort of, at least in, you know, broad sunshine, forces the camera to pick an F number that's, you know, F8 or F11, so that gives me a big depth of field. So when I sort of try and focus the camera, if I'm a bit off, it's pretty forgiving. All right, next up. This is a cool little toy camera I bought on my first anniversary with my wife. Oh, yeah. So this, unlike the Canon, has no options. It has a fixed shutter speed and a choice of 2 apertures and a plastic lens that was probably made out of the bottom of a Coke bottle or something, I don't know. So if it's really bright, you whack the lens onto the sun logo, which is the equivalent of like F11. If it's cloudy or not so bright, you whack it onto the little cloudy picture, and that gives you about F8.5, and the shutter speed's fixed at 100, so you just bang away at it. And the lens is plasticky, so it gives that kind of lomography look or hipstermatic look where everything's just a bit out but kind of in, and it's cool. And the nice thing about this is it only exposes on half the size of a regular 35mm frame. So what that basically means is your photos are a bit smaller. You can still blow them up to sort of the same 6x10 size. A roll of 36 film actually turns into a roll of 72 shots with this little baby. Yeah. All right, next up is this corker of a camera, which is a Ricoh full-on SLR, pretty much like your DSLR, except it's got film inside it, not a really expensive sensor. All right, so you wind the film on there and lay into it. Pretty much a lot of the same functions you'll see. You set your aperture on the lens. You'll focus it by spinning it's sort of like manual focusing on your camera, except the nice thing is there's a nice little split image inside it. So it's sort of like two halves of an image. Like imagine if you point at someone's neck, their head's over here and their body's over here. Spin the lens until the head and body line up, then you know they're in focus. All right, so the cool thing about this camera is it's got fully manual modes, as in you can set a shutter speed over here. Let's pick 2/50th of a second, and then you can whack it onto like F4 or whatever, shooting fully manual. Or you can whack the shutter speed into automatic, and then set the aperture, which is aperture priority. Or you can whack the lens into automatic, pick shutter speed, and we're talking shutter priority. Or you can whack both in automatic and you're effectively shooting in program mode. And then we've got my little favorite at the moment, which is, and everyone keeps walking past the window pulling faces, an Olympus Trip. And this camera was sort of like the ultimate point and shoot through like, I think the late 60s to sort of early 80s, something. Anyway, it sort of didn't change for ages and it was perfect. Unlike those cameras, it doesn't need a battery to power the light meter. It's got these kick-ass crystals in there which sort of do that. I don't know, I think they're full of like magic or science or something. Yeah, it's cool though. And basically, the camera picks a shutter speed, either a 40th of a second or 1/200th of a second. You can either set an aperture or leave it in automatic and let the camera fire away. And this thing is bloody bulletproof. It doesn't need a battery. The fact that the shutter speeds are quite low means the camera always picks a reasonable depth of field. So as long as I basically sort of decide whether there's a person in my frame, or there's two people in my frame, or there's like a full-length person in my frame, or if I'm taking a landscape shot, everything stays sharp. And it's awesome. So that's my film little arsenal of toys. I gotta say, I'm loving the Olympus Trip. Yeah, I know Ben loves Olympus. Yeah, I think we probably need to spend a little moment on talking about why this is all relevant. If photography is always about work for you, you're gonna find yourself either maybe potentially running out of creativity for a bit, or just getting bummed out with it. And if photography as a job is fine, but photography as a lifestyle choice, as something to do because you just love it, that's really where you want to hang out. Because if you're having fun while you're at work, that's going to pop into your creativity and that's going to boost it there. So film for me is totally a way to just chill out, have a picnic with, bang the photos out. If they turn out great, and believe me, they usually turn out pretty damn good, and if they don't, learn from it, shoot it differently next time. Yeah, you've had some good learning. If you just want to talk a bit more business-wise, I've got a wedding photographer buddy who always has a film camera in his bag now. So when he's shooting an all-day wedding, he knows he's got a roll of 36 in his camera that he can ping off at strategic moments. And that's actually kind of, he's finding it a real value add-on for his clients. A lot of them are going straight for the film prints to blow up big because there's kind of that trendy one-off kind of aesthetic to it that the clients are really digging. The nice thing about shooting film is although it's scary because you really don't know what you've got until you get it developed and then you get it back and then you look at it on your computer, that is scary. But the nice thing about shooting film is that you can be safe in the knowledge that A shutter speed's a shutter speed, and an aperture value is an aperture value. A shot taken on your DSLR at f4 at ISO 400 at shutter speed of 2/50th of a second. If you plug those settings into your camera, your film camera, things are going to turn out the same, exposure-wise. You know, there's still going to be a variance in the film. You got to make sure you get focus and all that. But basically, if you think of your DSLR as also a bit of a light meter for your film camera, get your settings sorted in your DSLR. That doesn't cost money every time you take a picture, and then plug those settings into your film camera. Your strike rate of shots will go up. The one thing you need to think about though is obviously film speed is the same as ISO in digital speak. So if you've got a film with a speed or ISO or ASA of 400, you need to shoot your digital camera on ISO 400 to make sure the shutter speed and the aperture behave the same relative to the ISO, because you can't adjust the only way to adjust a film camera's ISO is to change the film. In terms of where to get it, I know Big W still stock a bit of Kodak. I've seen some in my local Coles. I did buy a fair chunk of it though, and it doesn't look like they've replaced the stock since I've done that. So most places should have, if you've got a camera store, you should be able to get some film for it. If you remember back to the diploma workshop in Sydney, there's that amazing shop in Sydney, Smile Please Sydney Super 8mm. Canberra, I don't know, try Ted's. They should be able to put you onto somewhere good. Melbourne, Michaels apparently do pretty cheap developing and then scanning of film. As far as cost, you're looking at probably about $1 per frame to get it, once you buy the film, to get it processed, get it scanned at a pretty good resolution that you can edit. I don't think you'll get it much, you might get it cheaper. I don't think you should really pay a lot more than that. That's about what the camera store in Albury charged. A roll of 36 should be about $15 top money, I reckon. Depending on the quality of the film and all that kind of stuff. You can get, you know, the Kodak Ultra Max for way cheaper. But generally speaking, $15 for a roll of film will get you sorted. $20 to get it developed and scanned. Don't pay much more than that, especially given that film scanner's a good one. You can pay about $250 for if you want to do a lot of this, and then you never have to pay to get it scanned. So I think a reasonable workflow is to buy it, shoot it, take it to the camera store, or send it away to get scanned, get your CD back, do a bit of tweaking in Photoshop, and send it away. By all means, if you want to get involved and get into the developing process yourself, as you can see in some of the resources further down, it's really doable. But I probably won't be getting to do it anytime soon, and I think it's reasonable just to shoot it, enjoy it, relax, and then wait for your prints. Hey photographers, you don't know this, but this is actually like the 80th time I've tried to record this video and I keep jumbling my words up. So here goes.